Hey, this is Attorney Elizabeth Potts-Weinstein. Today I'm going to talk about when to hire an attorney versus a legal service provider for the legal stuff that you need to do for your small business. Stuff like trademarks, contract, copyright, setting up your LLC, setting up your corporation. When should you hire a lawyer, and when is a service provider that's theoretically less expensive going to be good enough? So really this comes down to your money, your time, how much legal advice do you need, how much customization you need, how complex is this situation? And it has all those factors, those 5 different factors, all kind of are weighed together to decide which makes sense in your situation. So legal service providers can be good in many situations. They're going to be cheaper usually, and I'm not going to say, I say usually because not always are they cheaper, but they're usually going to be cheaper. Sometimes they're going to be a lot faster. Sometimes they're going to be just kind of more responsive because they have a customer service person that you're dealing with instead of having to wait for a lawyer to get back to you. So there's kind of just more people that work there. Typically they're flat fee. So you go on there and it says it costs X dollars and then it's X dollars. You're not going to get some like random invoice later, hopefully, theoretically. These are typically a good situation if what you need is typical, is very standard, typical situation. You don't have a lot of complexity. You don't need things to be customized. You're comfortable dealing with any kind of those details like yourself. If there's just one owner involved, if there's just fewer people, fewer entities involved, and if you really just need a very simple result. The legal service providers typically are doing the same things over and over and over and over and over again. And so if you need one of the things that they do over and over and over again, they can put you in that system and get it done pretty fast and pretty cheap. But that doesn't always work, right? So let's talk about what a lawyer can do. So obviously a lawyer can give you legal advice. And this is the biggest thing. If you don't know if your situation is complex or not, or you suspect it might be, or you don't know how to handle some of the complexity about it, obviously that is when a lawyer would be involved to give you that legal advice. The legal service providers that are not lawyers, which I'm going to talk about that in a minute, they legally can't give you legal advice that would be illegal for them to do. It's in the word legal a lot in those sentences, but they can't do that. So they can tell you what words go in this form or how much it costs to file the LLC or, things like this, but they cannot tell you whether or not you should have an LLC or corporation. That is not their job. They can refer you to a video or to a blog post and so you can read it yourself. They can tell you what people usually do, but they can't tell you what's right for your situation. So if you have all these decisions to make and you do not know what to do, that is one of the ways a lawyer can theoretically help you, is help you figure out how to apply these general principles to your particular situation. In theory, you're going to get one-on-one attention from a lawyer. There are lawyers where you can meet them in person, where you can talk to them on the phone. Not every lawyer does stuff in person anymore. I don't do stuff in person. I haven't done stuff in person in a very, very long time, but there are lawyers who do that still. And if you really want that face-to-face relationship, that still exists. Lawyers are incredibly helpful in local situations. So what I mean is, if you have a physical brick and mortar type business in your town and you're having some legal problems that are related to the politics of your area, to the other businesses in your area, a local attorney is going to have this kind of local knowledge about the politicians, about the judges, about the bureaucrats. There's no way you can get that from a legal service agency. That is boots on the ground kind of knowledge that you are only going to get for someone who is local to you. Lawyers can also be very helpful to customize any sort of contract or agreement or setup for a very particular situation. So let's say you're going into business with a couple of other business partners and different people are contributing different amounts of money. Different people are going to get different kinds of profit share. Different people are going to have some kind of vesting that they're going to build in over time. Okay, we're starting to get really complicated here, okay? There's a point where you cross over where you're not going to get some template that's going to tell you how to do that. It may give you some ideas. You can pull in different ideas from different templates, but that's going to be a lot of work to do on your own and get it right when you're introducing all these different things. And I'll tell you, when you have multiple business owners who are owning a business together and they have different rights than each other, there's a good chance that that's going to go wrong. Okay. And unless you have everything in writing and it's really spelled out so there are no misunderstandings, there's a good chance you're going to go to litigation or arbitration someday, because the thing is, there's a mess waiting to happen. So you want to have that worked out to as much as possible ahead of time. So it's less likely there's going to be a disagreement because this is just the way it is. You all worked on it ahead of time. Lawyers are also great to help you navigate problems. So you file your own trademark application and you get a rejection from the trademark office. How do you handle this? Maybe sometimes you could totally handle it yourself and they'll tell you exactly what to do, but sometimes they ain't telling you anything what to do. You have absolutely you don't even know what they're talking about. That's when you can go to a lawyer and get legal advice. You are trying to negotiate a contract with a really big client and they're putting in these terms. You literally don't even understand what these terms are. They make no sense to you. You need a lawyer to tell you what they mean. You're not going to have a legal service company explain that to you. You need a lawyer. So how do you navigate all of this? One of the things to remember is that some of these legal service providers actually have lawyers there. Some of them are actually law firms that just have fancy marketing. So for example, I refer a lot of people to Trademarkia. Trademarkia is a service provider, but they're a law firm. It's just a DBA of their law firm. And they just have really good marketing and a really good website. But lawyers are filing the trademark applications and lawyers are giving you the advice about your trademarks. And so that's what I mean is that in some cases, lawyers are actually involved. Also, sometimes you can kind of pay extra to get a lawyer. So sometimes they have the kind of basic plan that's X dollars, but then if you pay extra, you get an hour with a lawyer or even more time with a lawyer. Or you pay extra and you get a monthly kind of program where you can talk to a lawyer every month or a certain number of times a year. And that way you have a lawyer to get advice from that's kind of built into the system. A lot of times that's a less expensive way to go than talking to a lawyer one-on-one. Not always though. Okay, it really depends on your location. If you're located outside of really big cities, it may be cheaper to go to a local attorney than one of these big service providers because your lawyers may be less expensive than the lawyers who work in, let's say, like here in the Silicon Valley. Lawyers here are really expensive, where lawyers in a small town are going to cost a lot less. Maybe they don't have the expertise you want though. So you do have to put that into perspective. It does depend upon what you need. So generally, here are the times, here are the circumstances where I recommend that you have a lawyer. Obviously, if you have the budget. If you have enough budget to hire an attorney, then yes, hire an attorney. That's great. If you completely don't, then you do the best job that you can. Second, if you have a business with more than one owner. And this is true for setting up the business in the LLC or corporation and drafting the shareholders agreement or the operating agreement or whatever it is. It can also be true for other things about the business, like filing a trademark, because when you have multiple owners, there's more people who can disagree about things, and having a lawyer can help you navigate those disagreements. Third is a physical location with employees. So when you have a physical location, when you have a physical locality that you're dealing with, when you have employees, you're adding a lot of complexity into your business. And you may want a lawyer with local knowledge to help you. And you may also want some advice about employment law. Now, you don't necessarily have to have an employment lawyer. You could also just hire an HR consultant, but you may want someone to help you navigate all the employment stuff, because that's one of the biggest ways you can have trouble in your business. 4 is if you have investors. Okay, so if you have investors, then if you're pitching VC or angel funding, you're most likely want to set up a Delaware C corporation. And then there's a number of services that have lawyers associated with them to set those up. And I've talked about them in some other videos, and I'll probably do a video in the future about how to set up a business when you're pitching venture capital or angel funding, or even just getting any kind of other outside investors who aren't going to be working in the business, because you structure the business very differently for those purposes to make the VC and angel funding people happy. It is the short version of that. And also because it's just appropriate when you have people who own the business who aren't working in the business, who are passive investors. The next one is this business particularly risky? There are some businesses where it's more likely an employee will get injured, where it's more likely that someone will sue, where you have a lot of inventory and you're at risk for that, where you have a huge amount of loans and debt and credit there. Some businesses are really shoestring and are very simple and don't have a lot of those risks. So the more risks you have, the more likely you're going to want some legal advice. And the last is if you're setting up a business from outside the United States. Now, you could probably set up the LLC and everything from outside the United States with some help from a legal service provider, but not with a lawyer. However, if you want to file a trademark application, you need a lawyer. You can use a provider like Trademarkia that actually are lawyers, but you have to have a lawyer to help you if you're filing a trademark application in the United States and you're not in the United States, because that's just required. You have to file it yourself, you have to reside in the United States. If you do not reside in the United States, you have to have a lawyer. That's just the rule. So again, this is attorney Elizabeth Potts Weinstein. If you have any questions about what we talked about today, feel free to leave them in the comments below and I'll try to point you in the right direction. Thumbs up if you found this video helpful. Subscribe for more videos like this. And if you have any other questions or want to connect further, you can join the free Discord or sign up for the Patreon. Links are below. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.